In this issue of Video Fashion Style, you'll be strutting down memory lane as we break down some of the most controversial moments in runway history. After making guests wait over 2 hours for his Spring/Summer 2008 show, Marc Jacobs presented a rather unexpected collection.
At the end of it all, the kind of show that I would expect to see at Graduate Fashion Week in London. I'm sorry, Marc.
But long before his Fashion Week faux pas, Marc stunned the fashion world with another controversial collection that got him fired from Perry Ellis.
I'm not fascinated by a woman who spends all day making up and dressing up and has an unlimited amount of money to spend on clothes.
Nothing is considered more scandalous than John Galliano's shocking exit from Dior.
At first people were shocked, and then you analyze it, you think about it, you just feel very profoundly sad about the whole thing.
Vera Wang went in a completely unprecedented direction for her Autumn/Winter 2012 bridal collection.
And I've never thought of myself really as a wedding gown designer. I've thought of myself as a fashion designer who does wedding gowns.
One man's trash is another man's treasure, at least according to Alexander McQueen.
It's a very special moment when somebody lets us just fantasize again.
And Rick Owen steps it up with a runway show you'll have to see to believe.
He made 40 couture pieces in a way because there were no sample sizes there. So I applaud him for sure for taking on that challenge.
Things seem slightly off-kilter at Marc Jacobs' Spring/Summer 2008 runway show, which is exactly what the thought-provoking designer was striving for.
I did a test with Marc, and then he said he wanted something sort of very glamorous and sexy, and had pulled out pictures of Anne Bancroft and Liz Taylor and all that. And we've ended up with this kind of disheveled, sexy, drunken hairdo.
He seems to know his idea inside out, to the point where he's telling you something and you're going, I don't get it. But okay. We've kind of made the face much more blank and much more finished than I ordinarily do. At the last minute, we're doing this big kind of goopy lip gloss, which you can kind of see in this picture. And then somehow the gloss, even with no eye makeup, turns it into a sex bomby kind of thing.
As 60 models were turned into demented sex pots, the front of house filled with a cross-section of Marc Jacobs' loving pop icons.
Marc is always special, everything he does.
I think he does really cool classic stuff with a little bit of funk.
But the stargazing and gushing wasn't enough to distract the over 1,000 guests in attendance from the excruciating 2-hour wait before the start of the show.
I think it's exceedingly ill-mannered to start your show 2 hours late. Good manners cost nothing.
Starting his presentation in reverse, from designer bow to finale, and with a run of show in rewind, the already controversial Jacobs continued to fan the fashion flames.
What was amazing to me is as an experiment to see people's reaction, how this even has become a discussion. It's just proof of how ridiculous this all is. It's I cannot believe that people could sit through a show like that and look at those clothes and say, why did you do it backwards? For that to be a question to me is so telling of how kind of nothing has changed in fashion. It's just people never look past what they see. They just don't get any deeper. It's really kind of sad.
The thing about Marc, which I really like, is he has the courage to do things that nobody else is doing, and not play it safe. And you may be criticized for it, or you may be applauded, but in the end, it's going to take you to a better place. So that's what I liked about the show.
I think that Marc Jacobs is probably one of the best American designers that there is. Super innovative, always on the cusp. He's really, really embodies the word pioneer. He's taken American fashion to a totally different level.
He's just so creative, and the clothes make you feel great. They're comfortable, and they're original and sexy, and whatever you want them to be. He does it all.
I was really just thinking about sex and how people define sexy today. And I guess, it's just my take on what popular culture believes is sexy. which, you know, I don't necessarily agree with. I mean, I don't think what's sexy has anything to do with clothing, but it was a nice catalyst to sort of think about that, and then to use those things that so clearly are what popular culture thinks about to reconstruct something that I found interesting. You know, so sort of to use the things I find really mindless and distasteful to create something I found really beautiful and poetic.
At the end of it all, the kind of show that I would expect to see at Graduate Fashion Week in London. I'm sorry, Marc.
Marc Jacobs is a genius because whether you love his clothes, you don't love his clothes, you love the presentation, you don't love the presentation, he sparks controversy, he sparks discussion. And I think any great artist of any level, to be able to invoke that kind of discussion is worthy of being talked about. His clothes were beautiful. I mean, it really took imagination and creativity and a real design element and design skill to pull that off and pull it off so well.
Known today as one of the most underappreciated runway shows of all time, the Perry Ellis Spring-Summer 1993 collection would appear to make or break the career path of a young Marc Jacobs. Inspired by the Seattle grunge rock scene, Marc presented his vision to a rather unprepared audience.
Basically, we have, in a designer's vocabulary, skirts, pants, dresses, and jackets, and shirts. And how you put them together can be very different, you know, whether the fabric is different, or the color is different, or the accessories are different.
And it was the difference that stood out. Jacobs' designerized second-hand chic.
I feel very strongly about people's right to choose and to decide for themselves and to express their individuality, not only in clothing and fashion, but in everything. So I just have to express that in the medium I work in, you know. Where I think we're going to is a place where everything goes. That's all. It's not about being locked into any one specific thing. It's being open to everything. And again, just total freedom.
For Jacobs, freedom was a wear-it-all-at-once layered look. Separates were nonchalantly mixed for carefree attitude. Jacobs perfectly captured the Seattle street scene with New York high fashion. The bold designer saw his grunge collection as a fresh alternative for the Perry Ellis woman.
It's any woman with spirit and security, imagination, style, adventure, you know, all the things that I like in people, whether they're women or men, you know. I'm not fascinated by a woman who spends all day making up and dressing up and has an unlimited amount of money to spend on clothes. It doesn't interest me, and I'm not fascinated on an intellectual level or even on a visual level, because there's no individuality there. So again, I see my customer, or Perry Ellis's ultimate customer, now and then as a really sophisticated woman, but sophisticated in the sense of she is secure with herself and is free to do as she pleases.
But after the show, Jacobs was immediately fired from Perry Ellis. In 1996, designer John Galliano was chosen to helm the iconic French label, Christian Dior. Galliano's flair for drama and masterful techniques took the house to new levels of success over the years, and his imagination seemed to have no limits.
John is like he's like a rare hothouse flower.
I mean, John's been so much about a romantic message, but in a big, explosive way.
He's kind of our resident fantasist, and he, transports us through his designs to you know, in a sense, known yet unknown places.
Whatever inspires him is never taken literally. It's always associated, reinvented, reinterpreted by John in his own way. There's nothing he hates, there's nothing that's forbidden. I mean, some people hate green, some people hate shiny, some people hate I don't know what. John doesn't hate anything, he can touch anything and turn it into something beautiful to his eyes. 10 times a year, time after time, he still can reinvent himself, and whatever subject he's dealing with, he will reinvent.
Sadly, his time at Dior came to a sudden and ugly end when on the first day of the Fall-Winter 2011 Paris collections, Galliano was fired from the historic house. Days earlier, he had been arrested for allegedly making racial insults in a Parisian bar. Citing a zero-tolerance policy, he was subsequently dismissed by Dior.
At first, people were shocked, and then you analyze it, you think about it. You just feel very profoundly sad about the whole thing.
It's a real sad moment in Paris to not have Galliano with us.
After being fired from Dior, news broke that John Galliano would be dismissed from his namesake label as well. However, in 2013, Anna Wintour brokered a deal to offer Galliano a temporary residency at Oscar de la Renta, where his work went on to receive favorable reviews. In 2014, Galliano joined Maison Martin Margiela as creative director of the house, marking his official return to fashion. He debuted his first collection for the brand in January of 2015 and continued to work with the house in 2016.
It's very challenging after 22 years of doing wedding gowns to always move that bar further in another direction. And I never thought of myself really as a wedding gown designer. I've thought of myself as a fashion designer who does wedding gowns, and that's a very different point to depart from. So this year I was in LA and I was looking through magazines and, you know, very avant-garde books, and it just sort of occurred to me that it would be really great to push it. So let's just make it all black. And then the more I thought about the whole underwear component, not in a literal way, but in a subliminal way, it was very important to me. And underwear, for me, most women, it comes down to nude and black and white. And we've done white, so nude and black became the whole story. Witches and the craft of creating clothes and what it takes, what witches do. You know, they boil and they stir the cauldron and they try to invent, and that's really what I tried to do with this collection.
The witchcraft idea was really spectacular to view. Dresses that normally will be purchased in white and all black and nude, it made you look at technique at a very fresh way, and what's great is that she's pushing the bar as usual. She's blazing a new direction. I mean, I don't know if girls will wear black wedding dresses, but you could think about wearing black or nude, but I really think it was to show off technique more than anything. And they improved their technique so much and so many different textures that seeing it in black, you could look at it with a fresh eye and you could see how it really works, and it was just really beautiful and exquisite. This will also definitely translate for a red carpet or for women who have parties and things like that, but this is bridal week and it's meant to be wedding dresses, so I think it was to present to the buyers on just taking a look at white, because we all look at a lot of white this week, so it gives it a fresh look.
I think the most important thing is not that I did them in black, because these are all going to be offered in ivory and white blends, but it's the fact that there's a freedom. These are about fashion. They're not about wedding gowns per se. They're really fashion dresses, so I think that's what's important.
Known for pushing buttons and breaking boundaries, the late Alexander McQueen presented a provocative collection for Autumn/Winter 2009 that left some interpreting it as mocking the fashion industry.
Well, he likes hats, fortunately, and he kind of, started on a whole kind of recycling trip and the idea of kind of using things that are familiar to us as hats. So it's kind of eco-friendly and kind of economically friendly. So, you too can wear your kind of laundry basket and look very chic.
It was incredible, it was intense, it was couture-like, it was McQueen at its best with the most incredible detail, the most incredible tailoring, the houndstooth print blown up, the smallest detail accented and blown up. I mean, it was just McQueen at its best.
I didn't have any show notes or anything, so I don't know what he was thinking about. I was thinking a little bit about like these couture bag ladies, like women who maybe, somebody who lives on the street and has a little bit, they find, like the found objects, like you see behind us, this kind of pile of trash, but it can kind of become beautiful.
The kind of like miniature umbrella is kind of a good, I think people can look pretty smart trekking around in their own individual umbrella. It's better than bumping into everybody. It kind of revolved around anything that is familiar to us that we wouldn't necessarily recognize as a hat, like a sort of carrier bag. It's made of chiffon to resemble a sort of plastic carrier bag. Kind of, chic trash.
About the women from Grey Gardens, the very famous image of Edie Beale. And she kind of wore a little bit of this and that, but she had that style that it still looked beautiful in her own way. I don't know what he was thinking, but I started interpreting that way.
It's just been all week for a show this amazing. It was worth the wait.
It's a very special moment when somebody lets us just fantasize again and take fashion to its utmost expression. It was like nothing else, and that's what you love from him.
The Rick Owen show certainly stood out. I mean, it was a really powerful use of non-models. And I thought it was particularly interesting because, he talked about the exercise of having to design for so many different body types. And essentially, he made, 40 couture pieces in a way because there were no sample sizes there. So I applaud him for sure for taking on that challenge.
Rick Owens was one of the best shows I've ever seen in umpteen years going to fashion shows. It was so thrilling when all of the girls from those sororities came out doing the stepping. And then you saw the audience's faces, and people were just, what is this? It's totally astonishing. It was fantastic.
Well, it was a fantastic spectacle, one of the feel-good moments of the season, if not fashion ever. You know, he rivals Marc Jacobs, I would say, for creating a fashion extravaganza, and this season, I think it made everybody feel uplifted and positive and like girl power.
To see someone who doesn't have to do that, who has an established brand, who could design for however he wanted to and put whoever he wanted to on that runway, I thought it was really nice that he decided to sort of broaden his vision.
Rick Owens was the highlight of the week. I mean, it was so much fun. The casting was incredible. It's been very amusing having overly svelte fashion friends of mine saying, but how am I going to look in those clothes? Like, welcome to the rest of humanity. No, I thought the clothes were great, and it was really interesting seeing them on body types that we don't usually associate with the Paris runway. And it had so much energy. It was truly fun.
Rick Owens was a show that really put a smile on everyone's face, and that, you know, gave us a break from just seeing clothes on the runway. I think it's very smart of Rick to do something that sort of sets a mood rather than just show clothes.
It's challenging because once you have that sort of individual presence on the runway, I do think that it's competitive with your clothing. And with these girls on the runway, I mean, I do think that his clothes to some degree took, you know, sort of played the chorus, and they were the stars. But that said, I don't think that the clothes always have to be the main event when they contribute so much to the sort of overall sense of the woman who's on the stage.
I mean, talk about bringing things down to the street and making it kind of real. I loved the way he had the, you know, there's no other word for it, but the balls to do that. I thought it was great. I mean, the clothes were great. I mean, that's the thing as well. You know, you're not just seeing the incredible steppers performing, but also you're looking at great clothes. And I thought that was really amazing.